This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
All right, it feels weird because we're not live, but we're back with the practice squad. If you missed it last week, we aren't going to be doing lives for a little bit. The plan is to hopefully get back to it. But for the time being, scheduling just a little too weird. So we're just going to kind of go with this. Back to our roots, I guess. I almost want to start with it and blow up our entire format because I need an excuse. I'm tired as hell today, and if it shows through, I'm sorry. We're going to talk about that in the middle segment. I've been working mornings, and as somebody who's worked basically every shift imaginable, this is the worst, like, as far as timing-wise, this is the worst one. And also, the number one recruit of the 2022 college basketball class, Emoni Bates, has committed to Michigan State. A lot of people don't think he'll play. We got a couple questions we want to get into with that. But first, I don't know if we've ever dedicated an entire segment to the NHL on this podcast. The NHL has found bits and pieces throughout episodes, but we're damn near 30 episodes deep. And I don't think we've ever dedicated an entire topic to the NHL. Maybe I'm wrong, but we're doing that.
It's well deserved right now, though. It is totally well deserved.
And I have my own thoughts, and when you brought it up, I had no hesitation to do it. Obviously, we're going to be a little late reacting because it happened so early on in the week, but I have no hesitation discussing this, but I'm going to let you lead it being the bigger NHL fan of the show.
So first off, I was totally surprised that you were like, yeah, let's do
I
was
happy to do that.
which shocked me. But I think the reason why you're so happy is because the NHL and the NHL draft lottery is a freaking clown show. The fact that we have a pandemic going on, your season abruptly gets cut short, and you go into this new format where you name 24 teams and roughly 2/3 of them have to play in a round robin tournament to then get into the actual playoffs, but allowing some of those teams that are in this round robin to be considered for the first overall pick is just mind-blowing and absolutely stupid, in my opinion. And then factor in that they actually get the first overall draft pick. Now, I know here in Detroit as Red Wing fans, and we're doing this from a Detroit perspective, so totally understand where we're coming from. But Detroit had the absolute worst record in all of the NHL. Like, the absolute worst. They were a dumpster fire of a team, and yet somehow they get beat out for not only the first, not the second, not even the third overall pick. They are drafting fourth. Do you know why they're drafting fourth? Because they couldn't draft any worse than fourth. Because thank goodness these makeshift rules protected them enough to be able to pick in the top 5. But I think the big criminal move in all of this is the fact that a team that will possibly win the Stanley Cup can win the first overall draft pick.
Now hold on. Not being a big NHL fan, I'm a little bit unsure. Now, the team who wins the Stanley Cup can't ultimately win the first pick, right?
I think when it's all said and done, no, I don't think that's how it's going to work. What'll end up happening is it'll be a team that gets booted out of the...
not qualifying for the playoffs. So here's the thing.
Out of the qualifying round.
If the thought process was you wanted those teams to have a chance because they normally would, I would only ask, why the hell did the lottery need to be done? Is there a reason the lottery needed to be done so early? Like, why the NBA pushed their lottery back? Why don't you just use your standard lottery rules and wait until you have everything figured out? Speaking of, again, I also don't know the NHL standard lottery rules. Like, I want to, for some of you who may not know entirely where I stand with the NHL, I obviously troll it a lot, and to be honest with you, this shit's comical. Like, this is legitimately funny that this is even possible. And I don't mean that the Lions can fall to from 1 to 4, because that could happen in the NBA too. But the Red Wings actually had a better chance of falling from 1 to 4 than they did of picking 1 to 3. They had a more than 50% chance of being the 4th pick. That's wild to me. How can you have the worst record in the league and have better odds to not get the top pick? Or not even the top pick, but a top 3. How are you more likely to fall the maximum number than stay like that? That's wild. So, I mean, like, when the Red Wings are good again, I will care. I'll never be a diehard hockey guy. The sport it doesn't do it for me like the NBA does or like the NFL does. But I just don't understand how, like, I guess I'm less bothered and don't get me wrong, it is weird as hell to say a team to be named later gets the number 1 pick. That doesn't make any sense to me either. But that's more confusing and just doesn't make sense than it is problematic. What's problematic to me is that your team with the worst record, and from what I'm looking at, it's by far. They had a winning percentage.
By far. They were horrible this year.
Points percentage of 27%, and second was Ottawa with 43. Like that's, how does that team go in? And here's the thing, Stroz. Before we saw the results, like the day of the lottery, I am interested enough in the Red Wings to at least I looked to see. I was I'm curious. Cause I know people were talking about, I have no idea how his name's said. Who's the number 1 prospect? It's Alex
Lafreniere.
Lafreniere. I knew people were super hyped about him. So I looked to see what are the odds of the number 1 pick, and I was like, wait a second. They have less than 1 in 5 odds at the number 1 pick. They have less than a 50% chance at a top 3 pick. Why don't you just give everyone an even chance? Why do we even do weighted odds? I mean, when the NBA started the lottery, it wasn't weighted. It was just everyone has an equal chance. And that's basically what this was. I think it's a stupid way to do it, but if we're gonna weight it, let's weight it. Let's not do this garbage where it doesn't even hardly make a difference.
This is absolutely nuts to me. Gary Bettman tries so hard to recreate a sport where if you're a fan, it's absolutely great for you. You love it. It's what it is. But he tries to do different things that are just so stupid and ass backwards. It makes no sense. You can't tell me that a team that will fall somewhere between 9 and 15 deserves the number 1 overall pick. That doesn't make sense. It's like the rich get richer. How does that happen? You should not have a draft where the rich are getting richer. The draft is set up to help reward teams that suck ass. And you know what team sucked ass this year? The Detroit Red Wings. They sucked big donkey ass all year long. They were horrible. And yet, this team gets burned and is drafting as low as it can possibly draft. And you know what? Kudos to Steve Yzerman for being such a good sport about it and being so big about it. But me as a fan, I'm pissed. I'm pissed at Gary Bettman's stupid rat face looking ass. I'm pissed at this whole setup. You can't explain to me why it's done this way and how this works. And I'll be honest with you. Last year, I took the entire NHL draft in. The year prior to that, I took the entire NHL draft in. I was excited for the NHL draft lottery. And then this happened. And you know what? It's one of those moments. No, I didn't have a chance to, but I was following along on my phone. But this is the same reaction I had when the Detroit Lions drafted Eric Ebron. I wanted to lift my computer up and just smash it against the first solid thing I see.
It is a lottery. This is okay, it's one thing. You look like a nerd, and I'm with you, when you freak out about a Lions draft pick like that. It's not even the freaking game. This isn't even the draft. This is a lottery. This couldn't be any farther from actual sports.
No, it's ping pong balls. That's all it is.
I can't bring myself to get mad about it. And what's crazy is in the NBA, you've had these conspiracy theories, right? Lots of people believe it's rigged.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if there's that belief in the NHL or not, but I would think you'd want the Red Wings to be good again.
I mean, I feel like hockey was in a better place when the Red Wings were at least a viable team, a viable option. I mean, some of the best stories that you had coming out of the NHL at the time were Red Wings versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. You had Chicago's rise to their championship, and it all started with the downfall of Detroit. Once they took Detroit down, they were arguably the best team in the NHL. There were such great stories wrapped up around the Detroit Red Wings, and now that they are in the Eastern Conference with a team like Toronto, you've got New York, you've got a bunch of your original 6 brethren, Montreal. I love nothing more than a Detroit-Montreal game. And now you've got all of them right there. Boston even. Boston has been a solid team for the last, 10, 12 years. A good Detroit team versus a very good Boston team, I'm all in. I'm buying tickets to go see this. I'm not buying tickets to go see a crapshoot Red Wing team versus Boston. Just not happening.
So I'm looking at this right now because I was curious. The odds that the Red Wings had this season were no different than normal. Let me rephrase that. The NHL changed their draft lottery odds in 2017. And these are the odds they changed them to. If you are the worst team in all of hockey, you have an 18.5% chance at the number 1 pick. That's way too low.
Yep.
16.5 at number 2, 14.5 at number 3, and a 50.6% chance at the 4th pick. Let me compare that to the NBA draft lottery real quick. I don't know what the numbers are, but I feel comfortable saying you get a lot better chance than that.
While you look that up, I'll give you a little bit of background as to why they set it up that way.
The number 1 pick is actually lower, but the 5th, like the furthest you can fall, is below. It's actually surprisingly a lot higher than I remember. But Golden State this year has a 47.9% chance of getting the 5th pick, which is the lowest they could possibly go.
So the reason they did this, the NHL did this, was to make obscure teams, like teams that were kind of on the fringe of being popular in their cities. It was to help draw more interest for those fans. Basically, fans who don't necessarily care about what's going on with the NHL. It was to try to bring them in, which I think just makes it a little bit more confusing for non-hockey fans. Like, you can explain the NFL draft to any idiot walking down the street. It's very understandable. It's super simple. Look, you finish dead last, you're gonna get the first overall draft pick. Just how it works. You try to explain the NHL draft lottery, and I feel like you almost need a flow chart, you need a Venn diagram, and you need one of those things that cops use when they're trying to figure out a criminal suspect with all the pins and all the shoestrings tied around everything. It's dumb. Like, Gary Bettman overcomplicates things, and then he ruins it. He just took a shit sandwich on the draft, and I'm upset about it. I feel like if you're a Red Wing fan, you should be pissed off about this. I think the only people who should be moderately excited for all of this, and it's because they conducted a freaking trade. It's the Ottawa Senators, because they get the 3rd and they get the 5th overall pick, which is some pretty good draft capital.
Can you imagine how amazing it must be right now to be a fan of a team that both still is alive for the playoffs and alive for the number 1 pick?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Because
let's say you're a team who should be rebuilding, but you would like to make the playoffs, because one of the things I troll in hockey, anything is possible once you make the playoffs. Cool. It means nobody's that good. You get to root to make the playoffs and know that even if you fail, you miss, you still also end up getting a chance at the number 1 pick. And that's insane.
All of it's insane. I'm so pissed off, man.
I mean, I laugh.
Angry,
I laugh, and I do think it's comical, but understand, this isn't me laughing at you.
No, I know.
I know. When I say you, I don't just mean you, Stroz. I mean the Red Wing fan listening who might be mad at me. I'm genuinely not laughing at you. I am laughing at the NHL because what they've done to you is unacceptable.
Yeah.
And I tweeted it that night that the NHL doesn't have to try to be a joke to me. But that's what they did with this lottery.
Yeah.
They said, we don't care if we have to try. We're going to do it anyways. And I got nothing else.
Look, I'll be honest with you. I really think Gary Bettman does things just so people talk about his league.
Well, he won if that was the goal.
Yeah, because that night when all this broke, it was a laughing stock. It's not, nobody's talking about you for the right reasons. They're talking about you for all the wrong reasons. And I know you're not laughing at me, because I know back in the day you were a huge hockey fan.
I make fun of hockey, but I still enjoy, if the Red Wings are good, I'm going to enjoy them. I don't care about hockey for anyone but the Red Wings, but I'm always going to care about Detroit sports teams.
But it is always stuff like this that pushes the obscure fan or the fan that's trying to come back.
Absolutely.
It just pushes them away.
Absolutely.
You can't build your fan base by doing dumb stuff like this. This is just inane to me. It makes absolutely no sense why you would conduct your lotto like this. It just doesn't make sense. And
I do want to wrap this up shortly and move on, but the one thing I want to say, I texted you. We talked about last episode, when can you buy in, or maybe it was 2 episodes ago, when can you buy into the Tigers?
Yeah.
And for me, that same question with the Red Wings, it makes the window for buy-in longer when stuff like this happens. I knew people were pumped for this number 1 prospect. This is a terrible hockey team. You deserve to get that number 1 prospect. That's a player I'm interested in watching if he becomes a Red Wing. And obviously every team in the league can say that, but the difference is, I'm a fan of the worst team in the league, which means I'm further away from caring than anybody else.
And
so getting this guy brings me closer.
Yeah, the thing is too, he's every now and then you'll have a draft where you have multiple guys who you can kind of pinpoint as possible generational talents. This guy is the guy for this draft. He's the guy. we go back and we look at the LeBron, the D Wade, the Carmelo Anthony, the Chris Bosh, and the Darko Milicic draft in the NBA. And there were multiple guys who were absolute savages in that draft. The NHL doesn't work like that. Every now and then you'll get two guys at the very, very top, and you're like, yeah, you can make a case for either one of those guys being the number one pick. This year, hands down, it's this dude. He has 112 points in 52 games. He's a freaking scoring machine. And you're right. You want to talk about bringing people back to the table to watch the Detroit Red Wings? This is that guy. This is the guy. This was supposed to be the pick, the stepping stone, the building block that helped kind of tie it all together and fast track this organization and fast track this team to get them back to relevance. Because I'm going to be honest with you. If you're a Red Wing fan, Dylan Larkin isn't cutting it. He's a good player. He's not a great player. You don't have a great player on this team. Anthony Mantha is not a great player. He's a good player. That's what it is. Tyler Bertuzzi, I love Baby Bert. Baby Bert is not a great player. He's a good player who does a lot of things really, really well. You have no great talents on this team. This is not the 04 Pistons where you can have a bunch of good guys who just want to grind it out and break you down and play fundamental basketball to win games. It doesn't work like that in the NHL. It just doesn't. Sidney Crosby can turn an entire game on its head just by being Sidney Crosby because he's so damn talented. Same thing with Alex Ovechkin. It's just how it works. Connor McDavid, I love watching Oilers games because Connor McDavid is a freaking animal. Okay? You don't have that on this team. This was supposed to be the guy to give you that and to help get you to the place where you want to be, where you're competing with these teams in this makeshift playoff. Instead, we're on the outside looking in and we've got a thumb in the butt. I'm so pissed off.
Speaking of the guy, Emoni Bates is that guy in the 2022 class. People calling him possibly the best NBA prospect since LeBron James. We'll be getting to that in like 10, 12 minutes or so. But first, Stroz, I've been waking up at like 4. It's changed day to day. Let's put it this way. Alarm 1 is at 4:15. I don't got to be into work till 5:30. So it's a little more than an hour. But the reason alarm 1 is at 4:15 because I've never actually woken up at alarm 1. Alarm 2 is at 4:30. I started the week waking up to the 4:30 alarm. The last couple days, so basically the last 2 days, it was 4:30 on Monday. The last 2 days it was like 4:50. So I'm waking up before 5 a.m. this week. And if you're listening to me and doing it, and you do that every day, like that's your job, let me tell you, you have evolved. That is a form of evolution. There is some kind of mutation in your genes that allows you to do that. Because mornings, like, we're not talking, normally I work at 9. It's not like I'm getting into work super late. But like, nah, like anybody who's waking up before 5 a.m. to go to work is a superhero. Like that is not, humans are not meant to do that. It has upended and derailed my entire week. And Stroz, get this is not an exaggeration. I spent a year and a half with my primary work schedule being 12 to 5:30 in the morning and then going back into work noon to 4. And I preferred that. That was like less, that ruined my life less than being up before 5 o'clock in the morning every day.
So I find this funny because
I can tell. I can see your face.
We both had the opportunity to, over the course of our radio careers, to work crazy schedules. Because I've done a split shift where I've had to go in and basically go fly around in a helicopter and be at the airport, by 5:30 in the morning. My shift was done around 9, 10 o'clock. Then I had to be back there in the afternoon to go do afternoon traffic. And then I've also worked in overnight shift. I absolutely hated the overnight shift. And I've done morning radio. And out of everything that you're talking about, I would say morning radio was probably the most fun I had, and it might have been the most enjoyable. The issue with morning radio is your first hour, you're a zombie.
Nah.
You're an absolute zombie.
Nah. I'm a zombie the whole day. It is 5 p.m. as we record this, and I'm still a zombie. It ruins is a strong word. It's not like I hate my life, but like I operate at 35 to 40% all day long, every day. And there's just nothing I can do about it. Every single day I've come home and taken a nap, a short one, nothing long, because I still need to be able to get to sleep tonight.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, man. Like, I could fall asleep doing this podcast with you. Like, I don't know how well it's coming through. Let me put it this way. Normally we record a podcast or I go on the radio and I have a pretty good semblance of my performance. Like, whether it was good or bad, I can judge that. I have no idea if my level of tiredness is coming through. And you know what? I haven't asked you to interact yet. If you had any thoughts on the first topic, feel free to talk to us. How tired do I sound? Am I selling you that I'm awake right now? Because I'm not. My eyes have been closed the entire recording. At Brendan Riley _ on Twitter, at Emoni Stroz. I mean, I don't know how to go about the rest of my life. Like, it's only Wednesday, and you could tell me it was December.
I think you're doing a fantastic job. Honestly, this might be one of your best shows to date. You're doing a fantastic job getting through this entire show right now. But I don't know, man. I'm kind of a morning guy, right? So
I'm a morning guy. Nothing pisses me off more than when people tell me they're morning people. I would break up with a girl for less.
I didn't mind doing morning radio. I do understand though. It is a chore and it is a struggle to get up in the morning. You are fighting yourself and you are fighting getting out of the bed every single morning. But I don't know, man. I couldn't do an overnight. I hated overnights. Overnights were brutal. By the time you got to like 4 a.m, you started to nod off. You needed to go get some coffee. You needed to get up, go walk around, maybe go take a pee. And doing radio is tough because you're sitting for long stretches.
Can I tell you why the overnight's easier for me?
Yes, please.
The actual shift itself is harder, but the result of finishing an overnight is you get to go home and have the most relaxing, refreshing, life-changing sleep of your life every single time you work an overnight shift. The difference here is I get off of work and I go home and have to live my life on this just tired, just awful place.
See, I would disagree with you 1,000% because I would get off my overnight at 6 a.m. if everybody showed up on time. And then I would go home and I would crawl into bed probably about 6:30, maybe 6:45.
Oh, boy.
By the time 9:30 rolled around, I was up. I maybe slept for 3 hours, maybe 2.5.
I don't care if it's not a full 6, 7, 8, whatever your normal is. It's just the amount of hours you get, that sleep, you're out.
The problem is, by the time 1 o'clock in the afternoon rolls around, you're freaking a zombie again.
Nah.
Whereas when you work a morning, you can go home, you maybe take a nap at 11, 12, maybe 1, just an hour. You don't need a whole lot. You just need a quick little refresh. You bounce back up, have a cup of coffee, and you start the rest of your day. And it's great. Right now, you should be up for maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours since your nap. You should be feeling good, B. You should be feeling real good. It's like when that girl gives you a little rub on your back with a little bit of hot oil, and then she starts kissing on your neck. And next thing you know, she's flipping you over for some fun time action. That's what you should be feeling like right now. Instead, I got sleepy eyes over here. Look at you. You look so tired. I wish people could see what you look like. Is there a way I can take a screenshot of this? You know what I'm doing? Hold up. I need you. I'm taking a picture of this. Oh, you got your hand in front of it.
No, because
I'll snipe you.
if I know you're taking it, I don't feel like it's gonna come through accurately. I don't know, man. Here's the thing. It is so, you just holding your camera in front of the phone. I don't know what came through.
I'm gonna send you.
I hope it looks good. But
I'm tagging our podcast with it.
Yeah, I'll go for it. God, I don't even know where I was going. Oh, I can't plan anything this week. That's the other thing. For me, I'm so tired that I'm not going out and running errands. I'm not hanging out with people.
So wait, hold on. I don't think we did a good enough job setting the stage here. Why are you working a morning shift right now? Because normally
it's just somebody else is off. All they did is I work the longest producer shift at my station. Okay. So I'm still working the same length, but I normally do middays. They shifted me from now I'm covering part of midday, part of mornings, and the other guy who's working is covering part of middays, part of evenings. So it's all of this week. As far as I know, that's it, but we'll see. I didn't know, things kind of happened quick, and they let me know on Sunday.
Let me ask you this. Because you are a very astute producer. You're very astute at sports talk. And I think you do a fantastic job at your job. do you find your morning show to be enjoyable enough to do what you're doing, or does it make it hard because you're really not into the show as much? And I don't know if that's fair to ask you that either. It probably isn't fair. I don't need to put you on the spot.
Let me think of how I would answer this. It's not about the show. Let me put it, I don't think the show holds me back at all.
Okay.
Like the show is not like boring and so I can't stay awake. What the problem is, and here's the thing, I think I could adjust. I just think that it takes me longer to adjust than I was prepared for. My expectation was Monday was going to be miserable and then I would be able to get to sleep at a reasonable time. That's not been the case. Like the reason I'm so tired today is because today's like day 3 of 5 hours of sleep or less in a row. So it's kind of building on itself. I really thought that like it would be easy for me to get to sleep, but normally like I'm going to bed at 11:30. And if I go to bed at 11:30 right now, I'm getting like 5 hours if I fall asleep right away. So my issue is that it's built on day over day. Like Monday was not as hard as Tuesday. Tuesday was not as hard as today. And we'll see if I get to sleep earlier today, maybe I'll be lucky. But I expect tomorrow to be the hardest. Now, thankfully, we have Friday off for the 4th of July. So I just got to get through tomorrow this week and I'm good. But it has been a rough week and I mean it. If you do mornings, you are a superhero. You may not realize it, but you are a superhero. It is, I don't think you could find a less appealing schedule than I had that year and a half where I worked 12 to 5:30 and then noon to 4. Like I think that is literally the least appealing schedule. If you polled 1,000 people, I don't think any one of them would say there's a schedule like they would hate more.
Yeah, that'd be a horrible schedule.
But I preferred that, and I preferred it pretty significantly. I admit, I think I could get used to this, but right now it's not there. And while I'm dealing with this, it is rough. I feel bad because I feel like I'm operating, like I said, I think 35 to 40% is accurate. Like I feel like I'm operating at about 40%. So like I feel like I'm not making the best of it for me. And if they asked me to do it for a month or two, I think I could get in a rhythm. But 1 week, boy, it's just a getting by scenario.
So speaking of radio, I don't know if you heard or not, and we didn't talk about this before the show or not, but DFN is no longer, and that was a station that both of us were a part of. Again, not sure if you heard that news. So DFN has flipped, and 11:30 the fan is no longer a Detroit sports station. And to be honest with you, it was kind of just hanging on, and I think we were 2 of 3 dudes that were really trying to pump some life into it. And then after me, you, Ryan left, Shay kind of took the burden on, and it's now no longer a sports station. I wanted to know what your reaction to that is.
So I didn't grow up on WDFN. I mean, my dad listened to it, and like I'm definitely sure, like I heard it before I really knew I was into sports radio. I'm not super late, but I think I skewed towards late bloomer as a sports fan. Like I liked the Red Wings in 2002. I enjoyed the Tigers in 2006, but like those are champions. I don't think I was like truly like I like all sports no matter how good the teams are. I don't think I was that guy until I was probably 10, 11 years old at least. And that might be on the early side. So I didn't grow up listening to DFN. So the nostalgic aspect of it doesn't do a lot to me. I respect that it does for some people because I know what the sports radio I have listened to has meant to me. But here's what I think is sad. I don't have a single doubt in my mind the city of Detroit could support 2 sports radio stations. Like this moment right here, right now is probably the worst moment ever because all the teams suck and we don't have sports because we're in the middle of a pandemic. But I don't think there's a single doubt that Detroit could support 2 sports stations. And like, obviously we have a bias. We worked with them, but I tell people, and maybe this is, I don't know, maybe this is a bad thing to put on a podcast, but there's very few things that I'm more confident in myself than my ability to recognize good radio. Whether or not you think I can do good radio, I think I can hear good radio and know that it's good radio. And Big Drew and Jim, if given a legitimate chance in Detroit, would capture an audience. I don't have a single shadow of a doubt. If somebody were to open a second sports radio station tomorrow with a full lineup, not having them on it would be criminal. And so it's really disappointing that that's not on in Detroit anymore just because I don't have a doubt in my mind that they would succeed there. And that part for me hurts more than losing the nostalgia of DFN. Not to take away from anybody else's nostalgia, because I get it. It's just like that part, I didn't really listen to them growing
I couldn't have said it better myself. I was Parker and the Man were that first show that really captured my attention and really captured my ear. And I fell in love with Parker and the Man. And then from there, what really got my interest in sports talk was Valenti and Foster. And that really started to kind of push me into sports talk. But it all started with Parker and the Man on 1130. And then I was fortuitous enough to work there. And again, work with Big Drew and Jim. And you're absolutely right. I think they could totally capture an audience in Detroit if given a legitimate shot. And it is criminal that the city of Detroit only has one sports station as an outlet for you to listen to. It was tough when we worked there because I was constantly trying to push for something. And I know when you were in Grand Rapids, you were pushing for stuff for both of us. And it was trying to pull a boulder up a hill because you had people who were like, yeah, it sounds good. But don't know what we're going to do with that. And I'm just like, great. Like, can we just get a shot? Just give us a chance. All we need is a chance and we'll succeed. But it just didn't work out.
We probably should get moving along here in a moment, but I do want to say when we were I think first starting to kind of work with each other on this podcast, or at least in the planning stages of it, you sent me an email about your efforts. And I was like, this man is I knew you never had a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And
I knew I never had a chance. But I was hoping.
But I admire, but let me say, I admired that. I admired that, knowing how, you have no fear of shooting the full court shot. It was more than that. You were firing that shot, that was more like trying to throw a Hail Mary from the 20-yard line. Matthew Stafford can't do that, and here's Adam Stroz trying.
Thank you. That means a ton to me, man. No, it really does.
And I appreciated that, even though I thought you were a bit crazy. But that's what makes this show work, is that you're a bit crazy.
Totally.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was I didn't even think about that, but I'm glad we got a moment to touch on that. Mm-hmm. And if you have any DFN memories you want to share with us, Stroz obviously grew up listening to them. I didn't, but I obviously am aware of a lot of the talent that were on the station. So if you want to share any memories of that with us, at Brendan Riley _ on Twitter, at Adam R. Stroz. But kind of wrapping up the show with one more topic today. I find this kind of stuff super interesting. In the NBA in particular, it seems like there's that guy every decade, every 15 years or so, that's just, you're aware of him by the time he's 13. And that's Emoni Bates out of, I believe, Ypsilanti. I know he's a Michigan kid, but I read about this kid for the first time 2 years ago, and he's 16 right now. Won the Gatorade National High School Basketball Player of the Year award last year as a sophomore. That is incredible. He just committed to Michigan State on Monday. And the thought for a lot of people was that this guy would never play a moment of college basketball because the expectation was the NBA would change their rules and allow the high school jump to the NBA in 2022. Well, they dragged their feet. That's not going to happen. So he's now declared, or he's committed to Michigan State. But I think there's a couple questions. One, does he play a season there? Because some people still think could be the G League, could be Europe. There's no doubt he's talented enough. Somebody will be willing to pay him. So one, does he play for Michigan State? And two, I think the question is, when you're talking about these kids, LeBron James level, and let me step off that just a little bit, because best since LeBron James doesn't mean as good as LeBron James. I read another article that said in a poll of I don't remember who, but recruiters, guys who know what they're doing. Scouts. They were asked, since LeBron James, where does he rank among every high school basketball prospect ever? And since LeBron James, on this poll, he ranked third technically. Some people saying he's best since then, but on this poll, he ranked third. The two above him, Kevin Durant and Greg Oden. Obviously, Greg Oden failed in the NBA, but that was an injury situation. A lot of it was, and he even dealt with injuries in college, but when you're that good, you dominate college basketball. So my next question is, if he follows through and plays a season at Michigan State, is that championship or bust? I hesitate to be that guy in college sports as a whole, because college sports, there's just so much. In college football, there's a little bit too much, out of your hands, that you don't get to control. In college basketball, it's such a one unlucky game, one rough game, and you're out of the tournament. And I'm not saying, like, look, Izzo's got a job for as long as he wants it. I'm not saying you fire Izzo if they don't win a championship. But I think if Emoni Bates comes and you have this kid who you're talking about one of the greatest of all time, and Izzo hasn't relied on those guys, without even knowing the rest of the roster in 2022, I think it is. I think if you get a kid like that, like, anything short of a national championship is a disappointment. And if you go to the Final Four, you ultimately say, hey, good season. You don't hate on it, but I think in the back of your mind, you missed out on an opportunity to win it all.
I think you're right. I really can't argue you on everything you just said, because if you look at what Tom Izzo has done, he hasn't done it with any 5-star recruits. He's never done it with a guy as talented as Emoni Bates is.
And you could suggest he struggled with 5-star recruits, like when he gets them.
He does. And I think some of that's his own doing, because sometimes he's a little bit too rigid in his own coaching ways. Instead of letting the guys just go out there and play, he just tries to confine them. And you've seen it with a couple, with some of the talent that has just recently gone to the NBA, where the guys make it to an NBA roster and all of a sudden they're flourishing, and you're like, hey, why couldn't that have happened at Michigan State? So I think with the way he constructs his roster, I mean, it's going to be a lot of high-end 3-star guys, and it's going to be a lot of the top 4-star guys, and that's not to get too geeknik and go down recruiting, but you're going to have a talented roster. And now you insert this guy, and if he is a game changer, I mean, in a Nike camp, last summer in a Nike camp, he averaged 32 points and 10 rebounds.
I saw that. That's incredible. He's a sophomore.
That's crazy.
But the fact that he's a sophomore is important, because now he's 16, so I think he's an older sophomore. But think about, where your body is at 16 versus where it is at 18. You fill that out a lot more as you get older.
I mean, he still has probably a growth spurt in there, as well as tacking on some muscle mass and filling out that frame.
He's 6'9", so if he grows any more, that could be a pretty big deal.
It's not uncommon now. This is, to go back to Big Drew and Jim, and I think this is something that Jim talks about all the time, right? Basketball is now positionless. You have guys who are built like centers, who can dribble the ball like the best guards in the league, and are able to pull up for 3. You know what I'm saying? Look no further than Anthony Davis. Well, the eyebrow was one of the first guys who you just kind of looked at and you're like, damn, that is a big dude who can handle the ball very, very well. Ben Simmons is another one. The Greek Freak, Giannis, yeah. He's an absolute animal.
Giannis is a point guard in a center's body.
Yep.
Anthony Davis was good at handling the ball for a big man. Mm-hmm. Giannis is a point guard in a center's body. This kid's 6'9" right now, so, I mean, that's not what he is at the moment. But yeah, he gets that growth spurt you're talking about. He could be pushing in that direction. And 6'9", you are talking about a small ball 5 maybe on the right team. Definitely a small ball 4 I don't even know if you call him a small ball 4 nowadays. I think 6'9", you probably are a 4. 5 years ago, small ball 4. But things change quickly. I also think you have to point out, it's a little early right now, but if things trend towards this kid coming to Michigan State, people are gonna want to play with him, right?
Oh yeah.
Landing him has to be a recruiting pitch. You're gonna play with far and away the best player in the country. If you come here, and look, I'm not saying this is the truth, but this is how you sell it. If you come here, you will win a national championship. If you come here, you will be on TV. If you come here, he will make you look a lot better and improve your pro chances. And add on, it's not like Michigan State's not a brand. It's not like this kid's going to the middle of nowhere. If things look like they're gonna come through, I don't know how Tom Izzo plays it, but I have to imagine this kid gives you an in to other top recruits. Now, it's a little early because right now there's still speculation he won't play, but if we get into next year and it starts to look like this man's gonna play for Michigan State, it just seems like everything is at your hands.
Yeah. That's one of those things. So I'm a huge Michigan fan, right? And I go back to the Fab Five. And I think one of the big coups that really led to Chris Webber, who at the time was a highly touted recruit coming to Michigan, was the fact that they were able to grab Juwan Howard, who at the time was another highly recruited talent. So no, you're hitting everything out of the ballpark. I know you said you're sleepy, but you are so on right now. Well, it's unreal.
Well, this topic is interesting to me. I find it really fascinating, these kids who, we latch onto as the next great thing, and they miss sometimes. They miss plenty. In fact, they probably miss more than they hit.
But I don't know. It's fascinating because there are people saying he would be the number 1 draft pick this year. At 6, I'm not kidding. At 16 years old, there are people who say if he was in this NBA draft class, he would be the number 1 pick. Like, understand what that means, what you're saying about this guy. And I think part of the reason I am so interested in it is because of the success of LeBron James. Like, we heard that LeBron James was the next Michael Jordan, and I know people debate me on this. Like, you can't actually say what I'm about to say, but LeBron James is objectively a better player than Michael Jordan was. So we picked out this kid at 13 years old, and he's the best basketball player of all time. Again, I know, like, I'm saying as a fact, and there are plenty of you out there who disagree. But like, the fact that we picked that out at 13 is so interesting to me. And so, like, I want to see what Emoni Bates becomes, and I certainly hope he succeeds. And it'd be really cool, despite, I'm very casual in Michigan fan, basketball and football. It allows me to, like, I think it's cool to see him play for Michigan State, because it means a program that, like, I'm aware of. I'll be able to keep an eye on him, and that to me makes it even more interesting. I don't really have anything else on it. I think it'll be interesting to see if he plays. I guess here's the one question. The last question is, do you think he plays for Michigan State?
Well, that's where I was going to go. I was going to say, which option do you think he takes? Because he's going to have, you kind of covered it. He's going to have a ton of options at his foot. He can go to the G League, and I think right now
G League doesn't appeal to him.
Right, but I think the G League is offering you up to $600,000.
Oh, it hasn't gotten that high?
I thought I heard that. I could be wrong. But so they're offering you a couple $100,000.
Still a lot more than a college scholarship for 1 year.
Exactly. And then you could always go play overseas. And look, I have a couple buddies who have played overseas, and the overseas experience is great. And usually you make pretty good money.
I believe Brandon Jennings, who wasn't even the top prospect in his class, I believe he got paid $1 million.
Yeah. Which is a ton of money. So do you take those options, or do you go play for Tom Izzo at Michigan State? Because I think the way it would probably play out, I could see him going and playing overseas for 1 season and then entering the draft.
You know what I think should happen? I don't know the financials of any of the European leagues, so I can't actually speak to this as an expert. I think a top-tier European league should see if they can get an ESPN deal to show this kid's game.
Show him.
And if they can, as a league, you make sure you get him in.
Yeah.
And I don't know that would work, but I'm just thinking of what LeBron James was, and this is the biggest thing since him in terms of name, and I wonder if that would work. I wonder if you could get ESPN to show games in whatever country so that we could watch this kid play before he comes to the NBA. And in that scenario, if you're throwing enough money at him, I don't know how he comes. I don't know, man. I gotta say, if not, I would lean towards thinking he goes to college basketball, because right now, far more prospects still stay going the college route than going the European route. There's enough who go the European route to believe it could happen, but I wouldn't write it off the way that a lot of people are. I definitely think there's a chance he plays for Michigan.
And just to kind of add to what you were saying about a European league trying to get a TV deal with a company like ESPN to televise his games. I mean, remember, LeBron James high school games were being televised on ESPN.
That's why I thought of it, because I think if that had happened, like if LeBron lived in the current world where you can't make the high school jump and LeBron went overseas, I think that's what happened. I think ESPN would pay to televise. I mean, they're
almost every one of his games.
Yeah, I think every game. I think they would pay to televise every game. I don't know what the time difference would be and how that would work, so maybe I could be wrong. I think it's at least worth looking into if you're a European league. All right, that's gonna do it. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'm sorry if my mornings and my lack of sleep showed through too much, but I hope you had a good time. If you want to interact with anything we did in the podcast, at Brendan